My ex-husband and his new wife died 6 months ago. We were divorced for 3 years prior to that. After he cheated on me, for about 6 years with the woman he married after our divorce. Ex and I share 3 children, a nearly adult son and 2 teen daughters. Ex got his second wife pregnant while we were married, which is how the affair was revealed in the first place. I kicked him out and cut ties except for semi-civil co-parenting. I've never had anything to do with his daughter, who is now a toddler. After my ex died, my former mother-in-law took her in temporarily. She is in poor health and my ex was our only child. The mother of the child had no family willing to take her, so she wanted to try to keep her out of foster care. My former mother-in-law asked me about 2 months ago to consider raising her granddaughter, seeing as she is the half-sibling of my children. I told her I didn't want to do that. She spoke to my children and they refused to ask me on her behalf. She suggested that my children might want to keep her in the family and asked how I could deny them that chance. So I asked my children if they had any thoughts or plans to take her on once any of them turned 18. They all said no. My son said his grandma had mentioned that to him, but he didn't care. My daughters share a similar sentiment, though she did not ask them directly. My former mother-in-law reached out again, and I told her my answer was still no. She suggested that her granddaughter was my family, and I cut her off and said that was not true. I told her I was not this child's mother, stepmother, aunt, or anything that would imply family. She told me she would need to let the caseworker know in the coming weeks that she needs a foster home if I can't take her. She told me to do it for her granddaughter, that she is innocent, and how could I not love her, and rambled on a lot about that. I lost my cool, snapped at her and told her I didn't want to help her granddaughter, and that foster care was the best place for her if she couldn't raise her. My former mother-in-law told me I was a horrible, evil woman, and that it was no wonder my children didn't care about their sister when I had that attitude about her, and she hoped one day it wouldn't come back to bite me in the butt. Am I the idiot for how I spoke to her and what I said about her granddaughter? Not the idiot. It's insane for the ex-mother-in-law to try to rope you into this. You went above and beyond by even talking to your kids about this. The child is a half-sibling to your children, but that doesn't create an obligation on your part. Some people are able to take on roles, like your ex-mother-in-law is suggesting, and some people can't or won't. There's nothing wrong with that. Your ex-mother-in-law needs to back off. That was her choice. Now she can deal with it. Needs to back off. That was her choice. Now she can deal with it. I mean, it's not insane. It's desperate. I can understand 100% why she's willing to try and do it, and why it's never gonna happen. Everyone's been dealt a crappy hand here, and it has obviously reached an inevitable, unpleasant conclusion. And how great of a life would the child even have being raised by the person who was cheated on and her being a constant reminder of that infidelity? Seems kinder to give her a clean slate with a new family that can love her without the baggage. I agree that OP is not the idiot, but as someone who volunteers with foster kids, I really wish people would stop viewing the system this way. There is no clean slate for foster kids, and there is no new family without baggage. These kids inherently understand that their life is completely out of their control, and their foster families are temporary placements. Adoption will likely be an option in this kid's case, and it may happen, but not before several foster placements and a long court case of the adoptive parents jumping through hoops. Well, not quite everyone. Opie's ex and his affair partner dealt their own hand by A, having an affair, B, not using birth control, C, not planning for the kid's future in case of their deaths. Trust and wills and pre-death conversations with friends and family are all things that they didn't do. Sad for the child, she'll pay the price for the poor decisions of her parents. But OP is under no obligation to take responsibility. My brother Harold is engaged to Lillian, and she asked me to be a bridesmaid. I politely declined and explained why I couldn't. Harold and Lillian are extremely unhappy with my decision. I'm a fire marshal. I know it's called different things in different countries. My office investigates fires. Since fires don't just happen from Monday to Friday during business hours, I work all shifts, including overnight and on weekends. I checked my work schedule when Harold and Lillian announced their wedding date, shortly after the engagement and long before I was asked to be a bridesmaid. My schedule rotates and goes in a pattern so I can see it years in advance. I was scheduled to work on the day of the wedding. However, I arranged to switch with another marshal, so I'm not working on the day of the wedding. I've ensured I don't have to work and can attend the wedding and reception. Otherwise, I'd be starting work before the ceremony and not finishing until after the reception ends. To be a bridesmaid, I'd be expected to go to Lillian's dress appointments, go on the group shopping trip to purchase the bridesmaid dresses, help put them together, host and clean up at the bridal shower, go to the hair and makeup appointment to help plan and attend the bachelorette party, assist with tasks such as making centerpieces and decorating the reception room, attend the wedding rehearsal and dinner. Lillian has been upfront about the level of commitment she expects. However, due to my work schedule, I am unable to fulfill all of these duties. The specific dates and times have not been set yet, and we must work around Lillian's schedule first. I asked Lillian if I could simply be a bridesmaid and attend the wedding, but she declined. She wants her bridesmaids to be fully committed to all of these tasks. My sister also asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding, but I was unable to do so for similar reasons. On top of that, I was in the middle of the biggest case of my career leading up to her wedding. However, my sister was understanding and did not react like Lillian and Harold did. I explained the same circumstances to Lillian and Harold, and I also reminded Harold that I could not be a bridesmaid for our sister. I thanked Lillian for asking me, and in an effort to make up for not being able to be a bridesmaid, I offered to pay for her hair and makeup separately from my gift. However, Harold and Lillian were not satisfied with this, and accused me of exaggerating my work situation. They are pressuring me to change my mind. Both of them are self-employed and have control over their own work schedules. Harold suggested that I could simply leave work early or not go at all, but that is not how it works. In my line of work, I cannot just leave in the middle of a fire or investigation. I did not think politely declining would be such a big deal, but Harold and Lillian reacted strongly. Other people are also getting involved and saying that I am in the wrong. Now I'm unsure because I am receiving so much pushback. I'm not the one at fault here, and it is not my responsibility to cater to their demands. Even if there were no conflicts with my work schedule, the decision to be a bridesmaid is ultimately up to me. Perhaps I simply do not want to be a bridesmaid. I completely understand where OP is coming from. Being a bridesmaid is a lot of work and can be expensive. The pushback that OP is receiving is likely due to the bride and groom actively recruiting friends and family with exaggerated and false information. People tend to jump on the bandwagon without knowing the full story. Let them have their tantrum. The bride does not want a bridesmaid, she wants free labor. Even if I had agreed to all of her demands, she would likely find more tasks for me to do. The fact that they are unwilling to compromise shows that they do not truly care about having me in the wedding party. They simply want an extra person to help with preparations and to pay for bachelorette and bridal shower expenses. No is a complete sentence, and I am not obligated to be a bridesmaid. My dad passed away when I was only a baby, so my paternal grandparents were my main caregivers while my mom worked until I was about 4 when she met Jason. There was some weirdness between them, and I'm not sure about all that went on. But I do know when they were engaged, which was 6 months after they met. Mom was in an accident, and my grandparents took care of me until Mom got out. I know this angered Jason and my mom. They felt like my grandparents should have left me with Jason and given me a chance to bond with him, because, according to my mom, all I wanted was my grandparents when I was little. And when the accident first happened, I cried for them when I realized I couldn't see her. It sounds like a social worker might have been involved, though I don't really remember it. Jason adopted me when I was 5. He and my mom had just gotten married. They told me it was going to happen, and I asked them not to. But they told me Jason was going to be my dad. I never called him Dad. I always used his first name and called him my stepdad, which bothered them. They blamed my grandparents because they shared much about my dad with me. My mom tried to cut me off from my grandparents, But the courts declared that since I had such a strong attachment to my grandparents, and they were a connection to my biological dad, I deserved to maintain that relationship. I ended up getting to see them every other weekend, and I got one overnight a month with them. I loved it. I never fully felt comfortable with Jason. He tried super hard to be my dad. He would spoil me, and would take time out of his day to spend it with me. But he was also so jealous when he saw that I kept a photo of my dad close by my bed, and when he walked in on me talking to the photo when I was little. He would get upset when I wrote notes for my dad's grave for Father's Day. As a kid, I used to believe more in people existing after death, and knowing what we said to them, and wrote for them. So I did that sometimes. I can recognize that Jason was pained by the fact that I was talking to and writing to a dad I never knew and would never remember, and still used his first name. But it doesn't change how I felt or how I feel today. His hatred for my grandparents didn't win me over either. I do think I love Jason, but I would never say he was my dad. I'm now in my 20s and engaged to a wonderful human. My grandma is going to walk me down the aisle. Before asking, I told my mom and Jason so they could be prepared. Jason asked me about money, which I'd never asked for or discussed with him. When I told him my fiancé and I were paying, he offered to pay so he could give me away. I got mad. I told him again that I never asked for that, and said it was insulting to think he could pay me to walk me down the aisle. He and my mom think I'm insensitive to his feelings. Given that I know he considers me his daughter and I've never accepted him as my dad, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It makes sense that after bonding so much with your grandparents, you would prefer one of them to walk you down the aisle compared to a man who sounds like he's forcing a father-daughter relationship with you and trying to bribe his way into your ceremony. If he really loves you, he should want you to be happy more than he wants to walk you down the aisle. What so many parents fail to realize is that if they stop trying to force a relationship, the odds are good that a relationship will form. For example, if Jason was more secure and didn't try to push you away from your grandparents and didn't get mad that you had a photo of your dad, you probably would have been able to get closer to him. Exactly. He can't just try to buy his way into your ceremony after years of a toxic relationship. While traditionally, the father of the bride walks her down the aisle, you were robbed of this choice at a very young age. And since you never had that kind of bond with your stepdad, it's understandable that you would want someone else to walk you down the aisle. I love that you chose your grandma, and I'm sorry that your mom and stepdad reacted badly. I wish you a wonderful ceremony and a happy marriage. My nephew is a tween. He's my sister's only child, but she has 2 stepkids. My sister's stepkids are my nephew's half-siblings. They share a father. My sister's stepkids have an active mom in their lives and split time between their mom's house and my sister's house. When my nephew was younger, he told me he felt like his siblings didn't like him very much and that they didn't call him their brother. He heard them tell another kid that he was not their brother. He was upset about it because he didn't understand why they would say that. I told my sister, and at the time she didn't seem to care very much. She said my nephew was fine and her stepkids loved him and all 3 kids were close. She said I was overthinking what he told me. I didn't really know what else to do, so I let it drop. But my nephew continued opening up to me. In the last 5 years, he has vented and cried on my shoulder and told me he doesn't think his half-siblings love him. He only truly realized they were half-siblings a few years ago, when a friend of his explained that he had a half-sister, because his mom had a baby with someone who wasn't his dad. And he came to realize that his siblings had a different mom. My nephew hates that his siblings don't want more to do with him. He longs to be closer, so he asked me for help on how to do that. I told him not to push them, but he could always ask if they wanted to watch a movie or do something together. Playing on a trampoline, I told him that if they say no, he needs to accept their decision. I did advise my nephew to talk to his parents about it, but he said they didn't care. After asking him some questions, I realized they didn't see the whole picture, or at least the picture my nephew saw. This changed when one of the teens did a genealogy project for school, and didn't include my nephew at all. This led to some questions being asked. The older kids said they only acknowledged one sibling, and my sister and her husband talked to my nephew about how he felt. He also told my sister that he spoke to me. She was furious with me. I pointed out that I had already approached her, but she dismissed it. She said I should have tried again and kept trying to make her understand. I explained that if I had done that, she would have accused me of getting involved in something that was none of my business. She admitted she would have, but my nephew would have been better off. She told me that he's her son and she should have been told when he was feeling like that. She asked me how she was supposed to feel hearing her son say that he didn't think he was loved or wanted. She told me I should have involved her. Am I the one at fault here? Not at all. It seems like your sister is feeling guilty and is trying to shift the blame onto you. You were right in not involving her, as it could have jeopardized your relationship with your nephew. Your sister needs to take responsibility for her actions and listen better. You shouldn't have to try to make her understand. It's highly unlikely that you were the first person your nephew confided in about this. As a young child, he probably told his parents first, but they dismissed his feelings. Then he turned to you as you validated his feelings and became a safe person for him to talk to. This has been going on for 5 years. You have tried to talk to your sister more than once, but she is using you to ease her guilt and maintain her pride. Don't let her do that. You and your nephew have both tried to talk to her multiple times. What more could she have wanted? Even if God himself had written it in the sky, she would have dismissed it as a prank. My husband passed away in an accident a few years ago, so now it's just me and my young son who is in grammar school. My husband was the main breadwinner, so it has been difficult for us. I work until late, and my son gets out of school at 3. My sister-in-law doesn't work, as her husband owns a successful business and she helps out. She usually picks up my son from school and brings him to her house to hang out and do homework until I can pick him up. However, last Wednesday, she called me while I was already at work to tell me that she and her husband had gotten last-minute concert tickets, so she couldn't pick up my son from school. I was angry. It would be one thing if I knew in advance and could make other arrangements, but she just sprung it on me. I asked her to reconsider and reminded her that she made this commitment and that breaking it would be really crappy. She still went to the concert. I had to leave work 6 hours early and lost out on all those hours. I figured since she put me in this spot, she should have to recoup my income, as it's the only thing me and my son survive on. I sent her a Venmo request for the amount I lost out on. A few minutes later, I got a nasty text from her about how she was not paying for it. I had to send my son home with one of his friends yesterday and today because she won't pick him up. I told some of my friends, and they're 50-50 on if I should have done it. But I need that income, and she made a commitment to me and my son. That's more important than going to a concert to get drunk. Edit. She helps me out for free with my son. This is amazingly stupid. Your sister-in-law babysits for free, and you want to charge her money when she can't babysit for free. Wild. You are the idiot. Your sister-in-law is not your personal slave. Your kid is your problem. But you sure seem to have dumped so much parental responsibility on your sister-in-law that you somehow think now that she's a parent and she owes you money to take care of your own kid. That's not how it works. The attitude is crazy. She said she helps out in quotes. The level of disrespect from the start to someone doing her this favor. I've been an aunt for more than half my life, and I feel lucky that my siblings always made their kids available to me to love and train and support. It's been a huge part of my life, but demanding I give up my life because they have kids was never their inclination, let alone their right to assume. OP doesn't seem to understand that her needs and sister-in-law's priorities will sometimes differ. Lady, I would never watch your child again. You can hire a babysitter. You are the idiot for the Venmo request and for not having a backup plan. What if it were a true emergency? What would you have done then? You must ensure you have a backup plan for childcare for your son. Your sister-in-law has been providing free childcare 5 days a week for 5 to 6 hours a day, including picking up your son from school and probably providing snacks and meals. That's a lot. We pay $1,200 a month for daycare and aftercare. I'd probably step away from an unpaid job that expected me to pay when I couldn't work. You should readjust your thought process.